Hello all you beautiful lads, lassies, and those of unspecified gender, it's the Irishman here, and today I'm going to be talking about what would have happened if Goku married Android 18. Now the story can't start at any one point. For two people to get married, there has to be a lot of chemistry between them. And sadly, the closest thing they have is Dr. Gero, but he's an engineering major, not chemistry. Corny dad jokes aside, we would still be starting our story in Dr. Gero's laboratory, only a few days after the defeat of King Piccolo.
Number 17, 18. This is the newest member to your little family. Number 19. I expect to see you three getting along while I prepare for your operation.
Then, Dr. Gero would leave the room, entering his private office, while 17 and 18 talks amongst each other, before then entering conversation with Piccolo. "So the good doctor snatched you up too, huh?" 17 would ask as Piccolo looks around the room. Instead of answering the question, he would instead respond with his own, wondering what operation the good doctor was actually talking about, and 17 and 18 don't really know. He had been talking about some operation for some time now, but they don't really know what he means. He's also been preparing for something relatively big, but they don't really get any information from him. It's not like they're going to be informed on every little detail. They are victims here, victims of kidnapping, not some guests in his home. And as the hours would fly by, the three would begin talking, learning more and more about each other. Lapis and Lazuli were actually twins, and Piccolo was just some random child Dr. Gero had interest in. Well, not random child, he was certainly different from any ordinary kid. The green skin as well as pointy elf-like ears kind of gave that away, but still. They would discuss what they want to do after getting out of this mad scientist's experiment. 17 really just wants to get back to his job at their local zoo, while 18 wants to actually talk and connect with this strange boy she met a few days before getting kidnapped. And Piccolo says that he wants to get revenge on the child that killed his father, or man that killed his father. Piccolo doesn't have a ton of details on the guy, but he knows vaguely what he looks like and wants to get his revenge. The twins would decide to ignore the murderous aspirations of the child and poke fun at each other's goals. 17 would joke, saying that after she gets out of this horrible, life-changing experience, her first thoughts are to go back to some boy she met a few days ago that she doesn't really even know. That's just weird. But then 18 would retort, saying that 17 wants to go back to his 9 to 5. After having this incredible, weird, horrible thing happen to him, his thoughts are going back to his day job. That's what he daydreams about after getting out of this mad scientist's torture chamber. That's just silly. The next day, Dr. Gero would begin pulling the children one by one. First to go would be Piccolo, who would go into the operation quite calmly. But then, after a few short minutes, he would begin screaming bloody murder. From all the intense pain as well as agonizing torture, he would pass out quickly though. Now, 17 would be next up to the chopping block, and he would have quite a similar interaction. First, he would shoot 18 a knowing grin, as if to say, "Don't worry, you will see me again, one way or another." Then, he would follow the Mad Doctor into his chambers. Then, Dr. Gero would begin the same surgery, although a bit differently to what he did with Piccolo. There was some new details to be added after getting some much-needed information from Piccolo. Then, 17 would come out of the operation looking much worse for wear, although he is still very much alive. Both him and Piccolo are still unconscious, lied next to each other on the ground, but now it's 18's turn. 18 would be brought into the operating room and laid down on the same table as the others, with a new paper-thin sheet on it, concealing some of the blood, but nowhere near all of it. There was still obvious signs of struggle and pain, and as 18 looks over to the other two, she would question to the doctor if they're still alive. He would respond by saying, in a certain sense, they are dead, but they are also so much more than alive. First, Jiro would use a syringe to inject odd purple liquid into the tied-down teenager. Something about that sounds very, very wrong. As 18 would begin to grunt and struggle, Jiro would begin replacing her soft and weak human body with new mechanical parts. Some of her original form would still remain. There are some benefits to being human after all, but by the time the procedure is over, most of her body is transformed into a machine. And then, once it's all over, Jiro would walk over to his supercomputer and start typing some stuff into it.
You know, girl, you screamed a lot less than the other two. It's quite impressive, really. But it's not all over yet.
And then Jiro would press two buttons. First, he would press the subscribe button to the Irishman, because, he's a pretty cool dude, and then he would press a play button, then activating a signal to ring through 18's head, over and over and over again.
Kill Son Goku. Kill Son Goku. Kill Son Goku. Kill Son Goku.
And then 18 would jolt awake, her cybernetic enhancements flaring up as she would scream out, letting out an insane electrical field of powerful energy before then looking out at the Mad Doctor. Jiro would begin to grin, thinking that she was directing this hatred at Goku, the person he had sworn to kill, but he couldn't have been more wrong. She powers up a beam of energy before then launching it straight at Jiro, killing him instantly. She would then immediately rush over to her brother, Lapis, or 17 as he would now be known. 18 would be scared and afraid that her brother was truly dead, and as she tries to shake him awake, the only thing that comes out from 17 is kill Son Goku. Kill Son Goku. 18 is afraid was her brother really turned into a mindless drone. Seems so. After breaking into tears looking at her brother, she would then get up to her feet and walk over to the door. She would give one last look at 17 as well as Piccolo, before then vowing to find a way to bring them back. She would then fly off, and as she does, Jiro would have activated a failsafe, just in case he were to ever be killed by one of these superpowered teenagers. The lab was set to go into lockdown, while whatever remained of his brain was cloned into a new cybernetic body. That way he could continue living, even if he died. He was a smart man, and he had failsafes, especially knowing he would be working with very unpredictable circumstances. As 18 is out roaming around the planet, she would be looking for someone, anyone, to help her, and eventually she would find a place to stay. Nowhere notable, just some random apartment building, but she'd be able to live there and maybe find some information on how she can bring back her brother. And after around 3 years, she would have actually gotten some information on the Red Ribbon Army, such as that it was a defunct military operation that was, well, completely and utterly destroyed a few years back by some kid named Son Goku. This makes all too much sense now. But as she is looking through the pictures of the Red Ribbon and the person who destroyed it, she would see the same strange boy she wanted to see before, the person she was talking about to 17. That was the kid. That was the kid she met a few days before being kidnapped. Is there any correlation? Is it possible? well, she suspects not, it's probably just a coincidence, but if she can find that person, maybe he can help her bring her brother back. She already wanted to find him, she already wanted to get to know him a bit better, but now she has way more motivation. And after the 3 years have passed, she would go to a place where she is sure that she can find him, as well as a place where she can make some extra money on the side. Because, 18 does like money quite a bit. Once 18 is signed up for the tournament, she would be introduced to the other contestants, such as Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, Chi-Chi, as well as Goku. Now, I'm going to say that Krillin and Chi-Chi here are actually a couple, as I think it'd be a pretty cute thing to do. Also, we have to give Krillin something here. Once everyone is properly acquainted as well as accounted for, the matches would begin. Now, most of the tournament would actually go the same, except 18 would be replacing Piccolo, as currently he is still in Dr. Gero's lab and cannot participate in the tournament. So 18 would face up against Krillin first, and yeah, this would be a landslide victory for the android. 18 wouldn't have any romantic feelings towards Krillin in this AU, and even if she did, it would still be a landslide victory for her. Next up, she would fight against Kami. And then, well, I'll just let you guys guess how that would go. If you guessed very easy for 18, you are once again correct. Keep in mind, she would be at the same strength she was in the Android Saga. It's just that here, she was able to escape from Dr. Gero prior to being basically put in sleep mode for at least a decade. Now, it was heavily implied in the original that 17 and 18 were actually operational a while before they were released in the Android Saga. Dr. Gero just had to put them into sleep mode because they were too rowdy and made an attempt on his life. Here, well, 18 would have made an attempt on his life, and succeeded, and now with Dr. Gero killed, she would be able to flee. Now, Dr. Gero is still alive, as I said earlier, but 18 has actually escaped. So, yeah, 18 would absolutely devastate Kami, and then on to her fight with Goku. Now, this one would actually be very interesting, as after Android 18's fight with Krillin, Goku would have talked with his best friend, commenting on how amazing this weird girl was. She was so strong, she was so cool, she was so confident. Goku is having a major case of the butterflies, which is something Krillin is shocked to see. He wasn't sure if Goku would ever actually develop any romantic feelings for someone. Goku really only cared about fighting, or at least that's how he saw it, and he's not too far off. It's just, Android 18 seemed really good at fighting. And Goku also thought she was kinda cute. Now, Krillin would of course agree, saying that she was definitely a looker, and, well, couldn't blame Goku if he were to go after her, and that's exactly what Goku would do, asking if, well, she could make sure to make it to the finals. That way, Goku and her can actually have a bit of a sparring session. And 18, realizing that he is attempting to flirt with her in his own special way, would agree, promising to make it to the finals and giving a bit of a smirk, before then walking off, and Goku would walk back over to Krillin, saying that, yeah, she said she would make it to the finals, now they're gonna get to fight! And, well, what did Krillin expect? I guess he kinda rizzed her up a little bit. Much like how Android 18 made quick and easy work of Kami, Goku would do the same with Tien. Granted, it would go basically the same as it did before, Goku taking off his weighted clothing and then running circles around Tien. The fight would be pretty easy in Goku's favor, although Tien was still able to put up a pretty good fight. Remember, Tien is still cool in this part of the series. Now it's on to the finals, Goku versus Android 18, or so you might expect, if I wasn't gaslighting all of you this entire time. Goku would have had his first match against Tien, much like how Android 18 had her first match against Krillin, although Goku has a second match before fighting against 18. His second match is against Piccolo, the newly made android who is out for blood. Although it would have taken a while, Piccolo would still have been able to escape from Dr. Gero, much like 18, although 17 wasn't able to. See, 17 was still brainwashed by Dr. Gero, but not to the same extent as Piccolo. But they were also brainwashed in different ways. 17 was meant to have his entire humanity taken away, while Piccolo was meant to have his bloodlust trumped up. And that's exactly what would happen here. Piccolo would be gunning to kill and nothing more. Once he enters the tournament, he would be out for Goku's head. And now, with Piccolo entering the ring, he would do just that, going to kill Goku. And every strike he lands would be near fatal. Goku would realize he can't play around here and give it his all. Although Piccolo was still certainly stronger than he was originally, it's not to the same extent as 17 or 18. They were built to be weapons for the Mad Doctor. They were built to be incredibly powerful. Piccolo, on the other hand, was mostly just being studied and modified sparingly. Gero wanted to know what made Piccolo stronger than the average human. What made up his cells, his DNA? What was a Namekian in essence? And he would be able to actually figure that out and give some of Piccolo's traits to himself as well as 17 and 18. That's what the purple liquid in the syringe that Dr. Gero injected into 18 was. It was Piccolo's blood that was modified to give a human the same capabilities as a Namekian, such as regeneration, incredible ki control off the bat, as well as different sorts of Namekian brand abilities. Think stretching your arms out. Now, although 18 doesn't have most of these, stuff like regeneration to a certain extent, as well as the enhanced ki control, is definitely something she would gain here. But what does this have to do with Piccolo's strength? Well, a lot actually, as this would be demonstrating how Piccolo would not have the same cybernetic enhancements as the other two androids. He has some, but not the same. Instead, he was being used to test the different capabilities and extent of Namekian abilities. So Piccolo would be put through torture and different sorts of harsh environments to test how Namekians worked. He wouldn't be given the same cybernetic abilities and strength boost that 17 and 18 were given. He would certainly be stronger, but not to the same extent, only about the same strength as Nappa. So although Goku is certainly on the lower end of the power scale here, he is still able to put up a good fight, as Piccolo is extremely fatigued and can't fight at his absolute max, as well as the fact that right now he is mostly just an animal, really, as his attacks don't really have any coordination or any finesse put into them. He's mostly just attacking rapidly. With a well-placed kick to Piccolo's head, and then a point-blank Kamehameha, Piccolo is knocked out, and Kami would then take him back up to the lookout, not killing him, but instead trying to calm down his mind and possibly reason with this other half of his being. This was Goku's request, as he didn't want to see Piccolo killed. He was incredibly powerful, and he just wants to make sure he can actually mature to the same level as Kami, that way all of that potential isn't wasted. And now it really is on to the finals. Goku and 18 would be standing opposite to each other. And then, as the bell is rung and the battle begins, Goku would rush to 18, landing blow after blow, which 18 would either counter or dodge. Goku isn't actually all that powerful, although 18 would still play around with him a bit, not wanting to outclass him so much that he actually feels bad or anything. Then Goku would try and launch a Kamehameha at 18, but she would just walk through it, which Goku is surprised as well as amazed by. Then 18 would give Goku a kiss on the cheek, and while he blushes, she would hit him in the stomach, knocking him out of the arena. Goku would clobber back up to his feet and look at 18. While his chin is resting on the arena, she would walk over and give him a hand up. Then, as he is pulled back into the ring, the announcer would declare 18 the winner. And Goku is shocked and surprised, but then the two of them would leave together, 18 being the one to really suggest this happens. She would ask where Goku's house is, and he would show her to Grandpa Gohan's home. Atop Mount Paozu, the two of them would have a, let's say, active night. 9 months later, by this time, the two of them are married, and Gohan is born. Where last we left off, the Sun family tree gained two new branches, in the form of 18 and Gohan. Over the time skip, Goku would have married Android 18, and they would have had a child together, that child still being Gohan. Now, once we actually get into what Gohan can do now, well, we see that being half android is a bit more effective than being half human. But seeing as Gohan is still a toddler here, it's not going to change too much, if anything, in the overall story. Although some outside factors do affect Gohan that do change the story, as 18 would actually allow Gohan to be trained. In fact, she'd probably train him herself, as 18 would know that there are dangerous people in this world, and quite frankly, Gohan's parents are magnets for those kinds of people. So he's going to have to be strong enough to defend himself from those kinds of evil people that might come after him. He deserves to be strong enough to be able to fight back, and 18 is going to make damn well sure that he can. And although Goku would definitely help train his son, most of his free time would be spent at the lookout, helping to train with Piccolo as well as trying to get him to mature and reform as a person. He's not sure what happened in Dr. Gero's lab, but hearing the horrific stories not only from Piccolo but also from his own wife, he understands that it was horrible and, well, a traumatic experience. So he wants to be able to help Piccolo break through his shell. And after a while, they would actually be able to. Piccolo would start to become a better person, and he is at least morally good by the time of the end of the time skip. Although Piccolo would also have some interactions with Gohan before the end of the time skip, before the Raditz fight or anything. In fact, Goku would actually condone and even support it. Piccolo's taken a liking to Gohan as he just seems very pure. He seems like someone who hasn't been corrupted by the world around him, and even though he's still young, Piccolo can admire that. He likes that. But eventually the time skip would still end, and now it's time for the Kame House reunion, wherein Goku would take Gohan along, and they would fly over to Master Roshi's house. 18 wouldn't go along because she had some grocery shopping to do, and, well, frankly, Roshi creeps her out a bit. Which, you know, is fair. So everyone would then arrive at Kame House, and they would start catching up, talking, just a bit of small talk, and everyone there is surprised to see Goku actually has a kid. How is that even possible? No offense to Goku's wife, but her name is Android 18. How does an android have a child? Goku would explain that he really doesn't know, but Gohan's really strong and really smart, so maybe they just lucked out?
But Goku, her reproductive organs shouldn't work.
Oolong would comment, as he really still isn't sure how a woman that was transformed into a machine would be able to give birth to a child. But Goku would explain that he has no idea why pianos are important here. Get it? Because, like, organs, pianos... Yeah, okay, I'll see myself out. While the group continues to talk, they would feel a strange and powerful, at least in human standards, energy coming their way. Once some random person arrives on the island, Goku would be dumbfounded. It's almost like this guy is trying to steal his hair routine. It's so spiky, so perfect. But Raditz would say that's because they are brothers. But not only are they brothers, but they're also lovers. But not only are they brothers, they are also the only survivors of an extinct alien race. Well, not the only survivors, there are 2 other Saiyans out in space that are part of Raditz's crew, but Raditz was sent here to try and recruit Kakarot, his brother, to come back and join their operation. They are trying to get strong enough, that way they can finally overthrow Frieza, their oppressive overlord. Raditz would be saying this instead of immediately trying to get Goku to kill 100 Earthlings, because Raditz would see on his scouter, not only does Goku have a power level nearly equal to his, but his child has a power level of about 800, which, if Goku and Gohan were to team up, would mean Raditz's certain demise. Goku would ask why they don't just leave the army if they really don't like this Frieza guy so much. Why continue doing his dirty work while trying to find a way to overthrow him? That doesn't make any sense. But Raditz would say that leaving the army isn't an option. People don't leave the Frieza Force unless they leave in a casket, or as space dust. When Frieza doesn't get his way, bodies hit the ground, or they just disappear. And Goku is surprised. Raditz is acting like this Frieza guy is this unstoppable force, and Raditz would say he basically is. Goku would note that Raditz mentioned there were 2 other Saiyans out in space. Why not just have them come to Earth, and then all of them could train together to maybe get strong enough to jump Frieza while he's surprised? If they take him out while his guard's down, then, I mean, he's still gone. It's not exactly the most honorable thing, and although Goku wants to get strong enough to beat him on his own, if he's really this big of a threat, that bad of a guy, maybe the safer route would be the better option? Raditz is shocked by this suggestion. It's weird to see a Saiyan think this strategically, as well as not want to put a fight above all else. But Goku would say he used to be like that, but once he had a family, once he had people to protect, it didn't really matter if he got a good fight, he just wants to make sure everybody's safe. And this is shocking, but not in a bad way. Raditz agrees with this, although most of the time it's because Raditz would want to save his own hide. He can kind of see where Goku's coming from here. Although the rest of the Z-Fighters are also quite shocked. It's not like Goku to think this way. What's changed? And Goku would say it's because he had a kid. He has a family now. He has a reason to actually care about saving people rather than just having a good fight. Yeah, sure, he still enjoys getting a proper challenge every now and again, but it's not worth risking the lives of the people he cares about. And Roshi is actually impressed. Goku's come a long way from the kid that he used to know. Before actually making the call to Vegeta and Nappa, Raditz would realize that Goku's power is fluctuating. Yeah, sure, it's around 1500 like Raditz's, but it's going up and down by a few tens every so often. This is strange. Goku's power, it's rising and falling and rising and falling. And Raditz would ask Goku about this. He would say that it's probably just because he's concealing his energy right now. He's not actually powered up or anything, he's just kind of standing there. And Raditz would question this. What does he mean? How is he concealing his power? And Goku would power up, going into about 20% of his full strength. Raditz would see his scouter going haywire, 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, 60,000, and then it would explode. Oh my god, Goku's the legendary Super Saiyan. Raditz would say this as his scouter was beginning to enter the call with Vegeta and Nappa, and they are surprised. Raditz found the Super Saiyan, but they can't talk about this as, well, his scouter just exploded. He has no way to communicate with them. Raditz would discuss how he was able to acquire so much power, and how he was able to refine his energy like that, and Goku would answer both questions separately. First off, he was able to get this strong through training with multiple different masters, multiple people who showed him how to push past his limits whenever he hit a wall. And he also regularly trains with his loving wife, a woman who is probably the most powerful person that Goku has ever met. Now, as a correction from my last video, she would not be at the same level of her Android Saga self. Android 18, although being insanely powerful, would not be at the same strength of her Android Saga counterpart at that point in the story, nor at this point, as she wouldn't have been built the same way she would have been if she had more time being tinkered on by Jiro. Here, she would be a bit weaker, not to such an insane degree that it's not even comparable, but to a degree where there's definitely a huge difference. So 18 would be, instead of at a power level probably around 500 million in the Android Saga, here it'd be about 3 to 5 million, which is definitely an insane gap, but keep in mind, this is at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. Power levels here were lucky to reach the 10,000 range. So 3 to 5 million, yeah, that's still pretty incredible. And it's not like she'd be done training after getting that power. No, she would regularly spar with her husband and her son. The two of them would have actually increased their powers substantially. Gohan, being half Saiyan, half Android, would have insane potential and would grow incredibly quickly. Honestly, I'd probably rank his potential above Frieza's, but for the sake of the what if, we're going to say it's dumbed down by quite a bit. Just because, you know, Frieza potential in any what if or any sort of Dragon Ball content just gets a bit out of hand. Goku and Gohan would each probably have power levels around 750,000 to maybe 1 million. I'd probably put Gohan at about 700,000, and then Goku at about 1-ish million. Maybe a little less, but also maybe a little more. I'll leave that up for you to decide, but I'm just going to go with 1 million flat. Now believe you me, I did want to make Gohan stronger than Goku here. I really did. It took every fiber of my being not to. And it'd probably be the logical decision. It just feels so disrespectful and wrong. Now, getting back on track with the actual story, Raditz would walk over to the edge of the island, pressing a button on a small remote he would take out of his pocket, calling over his spaceship. It's a small orb, and Raditz would crawl inside briefly, just pressing a button. That way he can actually communicate with Nappa and Vegeta again, since there were built-in communicators for the ship. Raditz would tell Vegeta and Nappa to come to the planet as fast as they can, that way they can start training as soon as possible. The Super Saiyan is definitely incredibly powerful, but it might not be enough to beat Frieza. They have to prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. And then the two Saiyans would get into their space pods, setting a course for planet Earth, and would confirm that they should be there within 1 year's time. Raditz would communicate this to the rest of the group, and Goku would say that this works out perfectly as it means he gets some time to bond with his brother. And since Raditz was apparently the weakest of the group, it means he gets some one-on-one training time. That way he can actually get stronger than even Vegeta. And that is music to Raditz's ears. Then Goku would pick Gohan up and begin to fly away, suggesting for Raditz to follow him. Then the two would arrive at Goku's family home. 18 would have just gotten back from having a pretty busy day. She would start talking with Goku, almost completely ignoring Raditz. Although it was certainly interesting to have some random guy in their home, she trusts her husband and, well, frankly, she's seen weirder. She would tell Goku about how she spent so much time in the grocery store, and then she got to the checkout lane, and it was so long, but it was also the shortest one there, so she had to wait in line, and then once she actually left, it was already late, so she couldn't make any food, and so she'd probably just have to pick something up. Then she went down, saw that their local pizza place was closed, so she had to fly to an entire other city just to go get pizza. She could have gone to the local Pizza Hut, but you know, it's Pizza Hut. As 18 would continue talking, Goku and Gohan would begin setting the table. Raditz is dumbfounded. The strongest man in the universe, the one destined to save their race, the warrior born of rage, was currently walking around a table with a 4-year-old replacing napkins. You know, maybe Raditz was off a bit. Maybe he's not the Super Saiyan. Maybe he's just a very strong Saiyan warrior. Once everything was all set up and dinner was prepared, 18 would sit down and motion for Raditz to do the same, seeing that he was a bit uneasy. Goku and Gohan would immediately dig in, and after 18 gives Raditz a "don't mess this up for your brother or I swear to God" kind of look, she would do the same. Raditz would take a small bite of the food in front of him, before then instantly falling in love with the flavor and eating some more. Then, after he's finished, he would ask politely if he can get some more of this strange dish, and Goku would say, "Of course, your family." Then Raditz would get up and take a few more slices. By the end of the night, everyone was having a good time playing games and kind of just enjoying each other's company. Raditz, well, this was a new experience for him. He never really had a family. Saiyans weren't brought up like that, but here, this was different. This was nice. 1 year's time has passed since the ending of the last part, and now not only has Raditz become a genuine member of society as well as a part of the Sun family, but he's also adapted to the somewhat cushy life of a regular human person. Now, he would still continue training, in fact he's gotten much stronger, but he's actually mellowed out a bit. He's not as violent and vindictive as he was in the original. Here, he's actually a pretty nice and chill guy, getting along with the rest of the gang like Master Roshi, Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien. But the person Raditz actually gets along most with is Piccolo. The two of them both have pretty crummy and bloody pasts, but now they are actual members of society, as well as friends and, for Raditz, even family with Goku. Piccolo would say that if the Demon King had his way, then, well, he would be out slaughtering billions of people, conquering planets just like Raditz used to. Raditz would say if he hadn't come to Earth and he hadn't met Goku, well, he would probably still be out conquering planets and killing innocents. The two of them would be able to actually bond over how they have now reformed, becoming better people. And they would also become pretty good buddies, as they are relative in power and pretty good training partners for each other. Raditz and Piccolo would also take on sort of a mentor-like role with Gohan, as 18 and Goku would be spending a lot of their time training in preparation for Frieza. Not to a point where they're neglecting Gohan, it's just they don't have that much time to spend with him when focusing on making sure that the planet is safe. They would still spend a lot of time with him, but when they can't, Raditz and Piccolo would kind of fill in the blanks, spending time with him and just hanging out, as well as training him. Gohan would learn a move from each of them. First, he would learn Masenko, and then he would learn Double Sunday. And then, being a smart thinker like we know Gohan is, he would create the Double Masenko, a move all of his own from his two mentors. And Raditz and Piccolo, while training with each other, would also work on their synergy. That way, they could be better co-op fighters. They would also make some combo moves. Like, Raditz would give Piccolo some of his energy, and then Piccolo would spew out a bunch of Shining Fridays, while Raditz would smash them into the opponent and then detonate. A Shining Grenade, if you will, combination of Shining Friday and Hellzone Grenade. But eventually, a year would pass, and the two Saiyans would arrive on Earth. 18 would be the one to greet them outside of her and Goku's house, and Vegeta would ask where Kakarot or Raditz is, and why they had their woman be the one to greet him. Yeah, no, 18's not having that. She would say that if he doesn't want to be greeted by the strongest member of the group, so be it. She'll go inside and grab her husband. Then he can talk to the second strongest. Vegeta is shocked as well as laughing. If she really thinks a woman could be stronger than the legendary Super Saiyan, a mere human woman, then she's an idiot. But then again, she is blonde. Now keep in mind, Vegeta is a prick, especially in the Saiyan Saga, so he would definitely be acting like this. 18 would respond by saying that Vegeta is short, stupid, stubborn, as well as sexist. Let's find another S word to describe this Saiyan, huh? Super certainly isn't one of them. Vegeta would get enraged before then rushing over to 18, putting his hand in front of her face. Vegeta would tell her not to say another word, or else Kakarot is going to have to clean up human chunks off of his lawn. But 18 would laugh and simply say that they can probably rule out smart if that's the decision he's going to make. Then Vegeta would launch the blast point blank right in her face, and, being completely unaffected, 18 would push a piece of hair out from in front of her eye, before then remarking that they can definitely rule out strong, too. Vegeta would take a step back, being completely aghast at how 18 was able to take such a powerful blast on the chin like that, and she wasn't even affected by it. But Nappa, on the other hand, would walk up to her, putting his hand out and greeting her as if she was the most amazing person he had ever met. She was so strong, so smart, so pretty. She made Vegeta look like he was a total scrub.
Well, if all Earthling women are like you, I know where I'm retiring to. Right, Vegeta? You know? 'Cause she's hot? Yeah. God damn it, Nappa, what have I told you? We are not going to breed with the other races. That is not the way we are continuing the Saiyan line. But Vegeta, think of the possibilities.
Although 18 is certainly flattered by what Nappa is saying, she would respond by telling him that she is already taken, showing a piece of refined lapis in a wedding ring on her hand. Vegeta, getting a bit frustrated, would tell 18 to cut the pleasantries. Just explain what plan they came up with on how to kill Frieza, and then he's all ears. And 18 would tell him that they've decided that they're going to wait another year. Everyone's going to train until Nappa and Vegeta are up to their level, and then they're going to find where Frieza is and jump him, 8-on-1. Vegeta is a bit annoyed by this, instead wanting to get strong enough on his own to beat Frieza. But at the same time, he understands right now he isn't in a place to argue. And then a few months would pass. Everyone would get properly acquainted with Vegeta and Nappa, and everything would be going pretty swimmingly. Vegeta and Nappa would actually get up to power levels around 10 million each, while the rest of the gang have improved from where they were last at. To give a brief overview of how strong everyone is here, I'll list their power levels as such, in a ranking order. 18 and Goku would be at the top of the food chain, each with a power level of around 25 million. Because of his cybernetic enhancements, Piccolo wouldn't be far behind, at a power level of around 23 million. He's not exactly up to par with Goku and 18, but he's also pretty close. Raditz would be right next to Piccolo at about 23 million as well, although maybe a little lower, maybe 22,750,000, since Piccolo would have had a head start on training as well as being a part cyborg. Now for Vegeta and Nappa, they are pretty far behind. Vegeta at about 15 million while Nappa is at about 10 million. Nappa would be farther behind than Vegeta because he is getting a bit older and entering his later years, and Vegeta would be farther behind because, well, he just can't get over that whole 1 year head start thing the rest of the group had, and so now he is still pretty weak in comparison. But he'll be able to overcome that hurdle eventually, he's sure of it. Now you might have noticed how I said a few months rather than a year. That's because they wouldn't actually get their whole month of training. See, Frieza had caught wind of all of the old Scouter communications between Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. He heard everything Raditz told Vegeta and Nappa about coming to Earth and the Super Saiyan, as well about Vegeta and Nappa talking about all the different things Raditz had told them about Earth, because Raditz would stay in steady communication with them using the communicator on his space pod during the 1 year journey. Raditz would have told them about how Goku might be the legendary Super Saiyan, and it might be because of how he's an Earthling. How maybe the goodness in a Saiyan's heart determines how powerful they become. It's just a theory, but it's entirely plausible. And Gohan, even though he's just a kid, is incredibly powerful. Maybe he's the Super Saiyan. Then there's 18, who, I don't even know, she's just so strong, but she's still a human. And then there's Piccolo, who's a Namekian. And apparently, not only is there this incredibly powerful Namekian, but he is linked to the life of someone else. A Namekian who is able to create these magical wish orbs, and they can grant you any wish imaginable. And all of this together would be good enough reason for Frieza to want to come to Earth. First, Frieza would send out the Ginyu Force to actually scout around the planet and kill off all the Saiyans. Frieza wouldn't have yet arrived on the planet, but he wants to see how the Ginyus will fare, that way he can determine how much effort he'll really have to put into all this. Bulma would have created scouters that would be able to actually properly read everybody's power levels, and that's why they know that Nappa and Vegeta have power levels like 10 and 15 million each respectively. Although, once they actually go out to fight the Ginyu Force, it would just be Vegeta and Nappa, suspecting that they should be enough. Now, once they actually get to the battlefield and read the Ginyu's power levels, they are beyond shocked. Each of the Ginyus range from 2 million to 10 million. Ginyu would be the strongest of the group at an astonishing 9 million power level, while the others aren't too far behind, but also not at the same insane level. Birder would be at a power level of about 3.5 million, Jace at about 5 million, Birder at about 4.5 million, but because of his insane speed he's able to keep up, and Guldo is only at about a power level of 2 million. He is definitely far behind the rest of the group, but his incredible power allows him to keep up, because he's able to stop time. But the second the battle begins, Vegeta would kill him with a single ki blast, because that'd just be too troubling. Then Vegeta would take on Ginyu himself, while Nappa takes on the other 3 Ginyu Force members. And it actually goes quite well. They definitely struggle a bit, but after Ginyu's taken care of, and no, Vegeta would not allow Ginyu to even attempt to take his body, they would be able to gang up on the other 3 and the day is saved. Or at least, it would be if Frieza wasn't circling around the planet before then going down and exiting his ship, looking down on the 2 Saiyans before stepping out of his bubble car and gut-punching Vegeta, laying him down on the ground. Frieza is still in his first form, mind you, but Vegeta isn't actually completely taken out. Nappa would begin to try and fly away to get the other Z-Fighters, but Frieza would launch 2 death beams through his eyes, straight through Nappa's chest, not only puncturing the right side of his chest, but also going straight through his heart. Vegeta would struggle to his feet as a blind fury takes over him. His eyes would turn yellow while he stares down Frieza. He would look at Frieza with a gaze of pure rage, before then telling him,
"You're going to regret doing that, Frieza!"
Goku and Raditz would have already learned the Ikari form during their training, but Vegeta, well, he just learned of it. It was basically using the power of Great Ape in his base form. Vegeta hadn't been able to stumble onto it until he had the proper motivation, and Nappa's death was just that for him. Vegeta would then land a hit straight on Frieza's cheek, and Frieza is sent flying hundreds of feet. He would begin to get a bit annoyed at this monkey's insolence, before then giving his usual chuckle, powering up into his final form right away, knowing that if he really is going to have to deal with the Super Saiyan, he can't play any games. That is why he did some light training over the last few months after all. He didn't want to risk anything by coming here. He wanted to get the Dragon Balls, wish for immortality, as well as snuffing out the threat of the Super Saiyan once and for all. Vegeta would be at a power level of around 150 million while in Ikari, so by all means, Final Form Frieza should not be able to contest with this strength that is equal to Super Saiyan Goku. But at the same time, Frieza is handling it like a champ. And then after toying with the Saiyan a little more, Frieza would pull Vegeta in by the Saiyan armor, whispering into his ear,
"This has been fun, but it's time to kill you, just like I did your father, and your mother, and your entire bloody race. Goodbye, Vegeta."
Frieza would then stick his hand straight through Vegeta's chest, ripping out his heart and throwing it on the ground. He would then wipe his bloody hand off on Vegeta's now jet black hair, before flying off in search of the other so-called monkeys. The rest of the group would have sensed Vegeta not only powering up into the Akari form for the first time, but also feel his power dissipate, and the insane amount of strength that Frieza had. By this point, Vegeta already knew how to sense energy, but did rely on the Scouter. That way he knew, comparatively to the Frieza Force, how strong the Z-Fighters were. Although the gang here, who have been studying energy control as well as sensing for the better part of most of their lives, can tell that it doesn't matter what power levels there are, all of them are going to be needed if they even stand a chance against Frieza. So Goku, Raditz, 18, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and Roshi all head out to a wasteland where they sense Frieza approaching, meeting him halfway. That way there aren't any casualties in some big city or open area. Once facing down Frieza, the group, well, they're terrified. Frieza's power is even more overwhelming than they had first thought, and now seeing it face to face, well, they're a bit concerned. Although they would stay headstrong and power up. 18 would have an electrical magnetic aura circling around her, and Goku, Raditz, and hell even Gohan would power up into the Akari form. The androids, Saiyans, hybrids, and Earthlings alike would all begin to circle around Frieza, attacking him from every angle. Although it seems pointless, as Frieza is able to reflect every attack, negate any attempt to actually harm him, and counter with something even more powerful. As it seems as if there's no hope because nothing they do will even scratch Frieza, they would hear a communication from King Kai as well as Vegeta. He would tell them that fighting is pointless. They stand no chance even with the gang up they're trying to do right now. Frieza is just quite simply too powerful, and the only way the Earth even stands a chance of surviving is if they flee now to fight another day. Hearing Vegeta say this, they know it has to be true, as he is the most prideful person there. The one person who would never suggest giving up unless it was absolutely necessary. But they're not even sure if they can. To actually be able to escape, somebody is going to have to stay behind to actually distract Frieza long enough for them to go. But even if they were able to, where would they go? Well, King Kai would tell them that Kami actually has a place. If they go inside of the Room of Spirit and Time, Kami could move the lookout to another planet, one where Frieza wouldn't be able to find them, at least not for a long time. By that time, they could all be training inside of the room, getting exponentially more powerful. That way they at least stand a chance. But now with his form set out, who's going to be the one to stay behind? Well, Roshi. He would say that he's lived long enough. If he dies here, it's a worthy sacrifice. Goku would immediately shut down the idea, saying that he's already died once before. If anybody's going to stay behind, it's him. It's his turn to sacrifice himself. Roshi's already done it, now it's Goku's turn. He's not going to let Roshi continue to put himself in harm's way just to save the group. But the Turtle Hermit would immediately snap back, saying that it doesn't matter if he's already done this before. It doesn't matter if this is his second time, third time, fifth time, 20th time doing it. Goku has a reason to keep going. He has a reason to keep fighting. And hell, Roshi does too. But Goku, he has more of a reason to actually stay alive after the fight's over. Roshi's already lived a good life. If this is where it ends, well, that's fine with him. But he is not going to allow a good man, a father, a husband to die here when Roshi can do something to stop it. So, he would tell his student to go, get stronger, and live to fight another day. Roshi will see him again, even if it's in the afterlife. And then, Goku, shedding a tear, somberly, would leave. Goku, 18, Gohan, as well as the rest of the Earthlings would fly away, heading over to Kami's lookout.
Am I being underestimated? You're sending this frail old man to take me down. Okay. Goodbye. How did you dodge? Not even Vegeta could avoid that attack, and you're just an old man! What are you? I'm just what you said. I'm an old man. But here's a lesson for you. Always fear the old man in a business where men die young. Kamehameha. So please enlighten me, old man. Did you really think that would kill me?
No, but I knew it would buy them some time to get away. Have fun tracking them down now, you bastard!
Back on the lookout, everybody is discussing their best course of action while Kami is moving the palace to a separate planet. That way they're safe from Frieza's unbeatable power. As Goku is sensing everything that was going down on the fight with Roshi and Frieza, if you can even call it a fight, he would begin to let out an unconsolable rage. Everything inside of him, all of his built-up power, would be being let out. He would transform into the legendary Super Saiyan as the group is being teleported from planet to planet trying to find a suitable place. And then, as ripples are sent throughout the galaxies, as waves of energy are sent throughout the universe, Goku would become the one and only legendary Super Saiyan. And although this power is certainly grand, Goku, looking at his own two hands, would say it just isn't enough to beat Frieza. The only thing they can do now is train and hope to get strong enough to be able to take down the tyrant once and for all. And for the next 3 months, they would do just that, training to get strong enough to actually be able to overthrow Frieza. And they would use the Room of Spirit in Time during these 3 months, but not the way you might expect. Instead of actually using it as the original time chamber, Kami would have adjusted it, realizing that even though the time dilation was a great power for the room, it just wouldn't help when there were so many drawbacks the room also had. So really, Kami just made it a better gravity room where they could train without worrying about damaging basically anything or anyone, also without getting under any of Frieza's radars. So, for the next 3 months, this is just what they would do. Goku would master Super Saiyan all grades 1, 2, 3, and even 4, as he would know that using the form and mastering it to its utmost limit would be the best use of this time, although he would still increase in base power. 18 would actually keep up with this insane growth that Goku is making by just training herself even harder than she had ever trained before. Her insane android potential allowed her to do this and even catch up to Goku's Super Saiyan form. And Raditz, not wanting to be left behind, would actually unlock Super Saiyan 4 himself, getting incredibly powerful in the process and catching up to his brother. Granted, Goku is still more powerful, but Raditz is catching up. Gohan, however, wouldn't actually be able to unlock the Super Saiyan power just yet, although he is still incredibly powerful and Ikari is good enough for him, at least for now. Piccolo would continue training as well, and because of his, although limited, cybernetic enhancements, he's able to keep up with the rest of the group, even now as Super Saiyans. And at the end of the 3 months, Kami would actually announce to the group that he had a way to make all of them even stronger than they are currently, by unlocking their hidden potential. He was able to learn how to do this by improving his overall abilities. He wasn't able to get physically stronger, but he was still able to improve in his own way. And by giving the group a way to access power they had hidden deep within, well, that's a good enough advancement, at least in my book. Now, although everybody definitely gains a solid boost from this, 3 people more than the rest of the group actually get stronger. That being 18, Gohan, and Piccolo. 18 would improve because, well, she's an android. Her potential is above most of everyone else in the group, as we saw with 17 in Super. Gohan would increase because, well, he's Gohan. His potential has always been absolutely absurd, and in this What If, it's even more so. But Piccolo, I'd argue, is actually the person to improve the most from this, as he would not only get a pretty incredible boost in power, but also unlock a new form. Not Orange Piccolo, in fact, He probably can't unlock Orange Piccolo, at least right now, but he does unlock his potential Unleashed form that we saw in Dragon Ball Super Superhero. He's nowhere near as strong, and I'll probably just treat this as his Super Saiyan form, but as an Namekian, although I do think this is definitely a great improvement for him. He's probably the strongest out of the group right now, although 18 might be a close second. And now, being far superior to their original strength 3 months prior, they would go out in search of Frieza, who hasn't been exactly sitting on his butt this entire time, but hasn't been doing any intense training either, so they're confident they should be able to beat him. Although before they are able to go after Frieza, they would head back to Earth. Frieza wouldn't have actually destroyed the planet, nor would he have actually made it under his rule, but he would leave a few scouts there, that way they can alert him whenever the Saiyans return. He really just wanted to make sure that they would have a place where Frieza would know if they ever came back, and then he could go and squash them like the bugs they are. And, well, yeah, this doesn't go too well for him, as the scouts are easily dispatched of before they can give away the Saiyan's location. Now, while on Earth, the Z-Fighters would go and grab the Dragon Balls, summoning Shinron and reviving Nappa and Vegeta. That way, they could have the two Saiyans actually be on their side when they go to fight Frieza. And, well, Nappa and Vegeta have gotten incredibly strong as well. Vegeta would have actually learned Super Saiyan while watching Goku and Raditz train and unlock it themselves, and Nappa has actually decided not to learn it, instead focusing on using Ikari with Kaioken on top. And Vegeta, although not being able to yet activate Kaioken on top of Super Saiyan, would be trying to do just that. Although he's a few miles away, he feels like he's inching closer and closer every day he trains for it, and, well, that's good enough for him. Eventually he'll be able to do it and surpass the rest of the Z-Fighters, but for now all he wants is to get revenge for what Frieza did to him those few months ago. Where last we left off, the newly trained up Z-Warriors were going out to fight against Frieza for a rematch. Last time, Roshi gave his life to buy the Z-Fighters just a few more minutes to escape. And so they did, training on the lookout, which had been moved to a new planet. That way Frieza couldn't find them and they could get strong enough to actually overthrow the Emperor. Now is that day. They had revived Vegeta and Nappa to bolster their forces, and now they're taking the fight to the Frost Demon once and for all. The Dragon team would reach some faraway planet where they were able to track down Frieza's energy to. Although Frieza knew they were coming, he decided to wait for them to arrive, that way he could kill them off personally. Plus, he also wanted to make sure they wouldn't actually be getting a sneak attack in on him. Instead, he was going to give them hell. Because, well, they were coming after his life. They were trying to kill him. He might as well return the favor. He also has to admit, he would be a bit bored if he wasted all that time training and also had all of those years fearing the Super Saiyan and didn't at least give it a fair chance. So he picked out an especially durable planet. That way he could have a fair fight. A fight for the ages. Something to really get his blood pumping. Once the Dragon team actually does arrive on planet, they would quickly find Frieza locating his energy. Vegeta would lock eyes with the Emperor, and he would begin to laugh. He knows the prince wants a piece of him, but Vegeta wouldn't actually bite. He knows that Frieza's too powerful for him at the moment, and they have to stick to the plan they already made. And then Goku, Raditz, and Vegeta would power up into Super Saiyan. Then Gohan and Nappa would power up into Ikari, with the latter even stacking Kaioken on top, and 18 would flare up her electrical aura. Piccolo would be standing in front of the rest of the group, powering up into his potential unleashed form. They would stare down Frieza before all jumping in to fight him all at once. Frieza is having a harder time than before, but they're still flies. Although, they are bigger, they are stronger. Actually, they're beginning to hurt him a little. Now they're hurting him a lot. He would become more fatigued as well as more beaten down, as the group would begin to get a major upper hand. Frieza would let out more and more power, but the group would as well. Eventually, Frieza is backed into a corner, but before he can do anything, the entirety of the group would power up energy beams, launching them one by one at Frieza. Before then, he is nothing more than a burnt crisp, ashes flying throughout the air of the planet. The day is saved, Frieza is defeated, and the universe is finally safe from his tyranny. Goku would be glad, letting out a sigh of relief, although, almost subconsciously, he would wish that Frieza could come back one day as a better person. That way he could actually get a fun fight out of the guy. He was really strong. It does suck that he was just an absolute scumbag, though. And this is where we have a bit of a divide between the team. Nappa, Raditz, and Vegeta would want to go out into space to fight against King Cold and hunt down any remnants of the Frieza Empire, while the Sun family, as well as Piccolo, want to go back to Earth. So they would just kind of head their separate ways. Once arriving back on Earth, the gang would be met by Trunks, who had just come back to the past to warn of an impending android threat and giving Goku the heart virus medication. Now, Goku would definitely make sure to take this medication, but they're curious about this whole android threat, and Trunks, seeing 18, would immediately get into an offensive position, asking what that monster is doing here. Goku would immediately get defensive, saying that 18 isn't a monster and asking him who he is and how he thinks he can even say that. But Trunks would explain that from his future, two androids, androids 17 and 18, terrorized the entire planet, brought it to its knees, and killed countless innocent people. And 18 would speak up, saying that, well, if the Mad Doctor actually had his way, that is probably what would happen. Goku would ask what she means, and she would explain everything. Now, of course, the Z-Gang would have already heard from 18 and Piccolo all the horrific stories from in Dr. Gero's lab, but 18 would tell everyone here that if Gero was still alive, then 17 and 18 as well as Piccolo could potentially go back under his control. They have cybernetics inside of them that could potentially be hacked and control their every move. Trunks would say that it didn't seem that way. It didn't seem like there was any sort of a hive mind. They almost seemed like they were doing it for fun. 18 here would say that maybe that's the case, but here in this timeline, that's just not what's happening. If anything, they should go to Dr. Gero's lab and see what's happening now. And Goku, not wanting to actually have this grandiose fight with the androids like in the original, would say that this is an excellent idea. Let's see what's going on there, and potentially prevent any future threats. Instead of in the original, like I said, where everyone was just kind of like, yeah, let's just toy around with this whole death thing. Yeah, this future guy came and said we all die to these ultra-powerful androids, so let's just let that happen. Stupid idea. No. Here, Goku would completely support the idea of going and checking Dr. Gero's lab before the androids wake up. And here, in this circumstance, before Dr. Gero can do anything mischievous. Once arriving in the Mad Doctor's laboratory, they would blow down the doors, seeing Gero tinkering on some more pet projects, such as Android 16 and Android 19. Immediately, the gang would get hostile, but more so than anyone else, 18 would fire a ki blast that would instantly incinerate the Mad Doctor. Now, they would look over his notes and the blueprints that he was working on and see both 16 and 19. They would decide to put them back into sleep mode and into their capsules, as well as looking over anything else in his lab. They would find a supercomputer with hard drives that would allow Gero to come back after he was killed, and they would instantly wipe all of them clean, either through using computer work or just through, vaporizing them. Then, going into his sub-lab, they would find Cell. They would decide to go and grab Bulma, since she probably knows more than anybody else about this. And then, seeing everything in Gero's lab, she would immediately know what she has to do. She has to go down deep into the code of all of these androids and make sure that they aren't used for any evil purposes. If these weapons were used in his hands, then, well, the Mad Doctor would be absolutely unstoppable. These machines, these weapons, these androids, they were so incredibly powerful. The strongest one here was 16, but The one that had the most potential was Cell. He could potentially grow to be the strongest being on the planet, and that includes the Super Saiyans that were in the room with her. And then, well, everyone would carry all of Jiro's equipment back to Capsule Corp, where Bulma would begin working. Although the project she would take the most care, as well as focus on the most, would be Android 17, as 18 would especially request for her to do this, telling her that this was her brother. This was 17. This was her twin brother who was in Jiro's lab with her all those years ago. Eventually, Bulma would be able to restore 17's personality completely, as well as removing any brainwashing, and even making it so that his cybernetic enhancements wouldn't actually mess with him at all. He'd have perfect control over them right away, no having to get used to using them or anything. 17 would wake up next to his sister, and immediately the two would reconnect, 18 embracing her brother in a hug. The two would continue chatting for a bit, 18 catching 17 up on everything that happened, and then the two finally reunited would go home. 17 would stay with the Sun family for a while, although he does want to actually go and have some more fun out in nature, maybe open up his own wildlife sanctuary, and 18 would actually give him a loan to do this, as she has a lot of money here, mostly from tournament winnings and all sorts of other arrangements, but the point is she has the money and she would give 17 enough to where he can do basically whatever he wants to, and if 18 couldn't do this, well, they are friends with the richest people in the world in the form of the Briefs family. But Bulma wouldn't just stop at 17, instead she would continue working on the other two androids, 16 and 19. Although she would give up on 19 because he was a creepy clown robot which was specifically designed to kill people, 16 was a bit more promising. He would have all of the bugs and all of the murderous intent completely scrapped, and Bulma would kind of just turn him into the world's strongest as well as most interesting bodyguard. He would love birds, he would love nature, same with 17, and the two would get along well. 16 would also work as sort of a bodyguard for Capsule Corp, as, well, what else would he do? Bulma would especially design him to be good at protecting people. So being a bodyguard for the Briefs family, the richest family in the world, yeah, that's a pretty good use of his abilities. But 16 is by no means Bulma's biggest project. After completing and fixing 17, that way he is back up to working order, she began working on Cell as well as 16. See, Cell was an interesting case. He was a bio-android. He couldn't just be repaired and fixed the same way 16 could. Instead, she would have to do a lot more digging, as well as trying to actually go down into the roots of Cell's very DNA. She would have to splice together something to make sure that Cell wouldn't actually turn out to be the evil, blood-hungry monster that Jiro aimed for him to be. So after night after night after night, Bulma would have actually fixed everything in Cell's code, keeping Frieza's DNA as well as the Saiyans, but making sure that it's not as corrupted. He gets the benefits, but none of the drawbacks, like the evil or corruption weighing him down. Now, once Cell actually leaves his pod, he would be perfect. Not just in the sense that he is morally just, but he would come out perfect right from the beginning. Jiro very well could have just made Cell perfect from the get-go, but instead he made it so that he would have to absorb 17 and 18. He didn't have to do this, but he did. Bulma, however, would remove that feature, and instead just decide to make Cell perfect from the beginning. And he would. And after Cell actually leaves his incubation pod, he would be a perfect bio-android, as well as a member of the Briefs family. They would realize that they would have to actually nurture Cell in a more beneficial way if they want to make sure that he will actually turn out as a good person. Nurture is one half of the equation. Yeah, sure, they might have made his nature be good, but the nurture is a big part of it too. But Cell isn't the only addition to the Briefs household. Vegeta is too, seeing as he wanted a place to stay on Earth, and Bulma, well, she was willing to let him bunk with her, if you catch my drift. Now 9 months later, Trunks would be born, but that's besides the point. For now, it's kind of just Vegeta living with Bulma, and training with Cell as he wants to be able to get ahead of Goku and 18 one way or another, and training with his bio-android might just be the way. Plus, maybe he could help him mix Super Saiyan and Kaioken. That would be useful. Now, 18 and Goku are actually not only stronger than Vegeta, but also Cell here. In fact, they're even stronger than Cell from the original timeline, and even Perfecter Cell. You might wonder why this is, but it's pretty simple. Goku's base power would be far stronger than it was even in the Cell games. Keep in mind, Goku and 18 would have been training since the end of OG Dragon Ball. And 18 was around this strength as full power Frieza right at the start of this training. Goku would take a while to catch up, but he would get to that same strength. 18 was still Android 18. Even if she was a bit weaker, she would still at the bare minimum be full power Frieza level, which is pretty crazy. Then you mix that in with 5+ years of training, basically just all the time, and Goku and 18 are pretty stacked here. They'd probably be around the same strength as Deborah during the Buu Saga, and here they would still be training. Goku would only have regular Super Saiyan, but he's still incredibly powerful. 18 is working to just improve her base power as she doesn't actually have a transformation. Although both of them are working to try and get Gohan to turn Super Saiyan. Goku's already long since mastered the form, but they want to see if they can get Gohan to. And now if you're wondering what's going on with Trunks in his future timeline, well, he would have actually had Goku or somebody go along with him to the future to take out the androids. Although they wouldn't actually kill androids 17 and 18 there. Instead, they would kind of just have them reform. It isn't crazy to assume that they'd be able to do this, and although Trunks would be a bit reluctant, it would actually work. Having 17-18 from the future timeline see that there are people far stronger than them to keep them in check, they would begin turning over a new leaf. Now, I'm not saying that they go from murderous psychopaths to goody two-shoes in a matter of minutes, but I'm saying that they would be on the path to actually changing their, well, evil ways. Now, back to the present timeline, Piccolo would continue training with Raditz on the lookout. And Nappa, well, he'll kind of just go off on his own. He's interested in hanging out with the ladies more than he is in actually training, so he'll just be doing that. I mean, you gotta repopulate the Saiyan race somehow. But back to the lookout, Kami would actually decide to merge into Piccolo much earlier on, after giving him the coordinates to planet Namek. He would realize that Piccolo has truly become a better man, and maybe now Kami's best use would be becoming a part of Piccolo. So then the two would fuse, and Piccolo continues being the strongest person on the planet. Well, Raditz is actually catching up to his rival, although not to the same extent as Goku and 18 are, who are definitely second place, but Raditz is still incredibly powerful, using Super Saiyan, and he even has a theory about mixing it with the Akari form. So at the end of the day, all of this really means that everybody is a lot stronger than they were before, and they are prepared for whatever threat may come to Earth. And as many of you know, there is always some threat lurking in the background in Dragon Ball, and right now is no different, with the appearance of people trying to resurrect Majin Buu. Several years has passed since the defeat of the androids, or more so the prevention of the android threat. 17, 16, and even Cell were all helped out by Bulma, being recoded, and for 17, having most of his cybernetic enhancements and mental manipulation completely washed. 10 years have passed since that event, and now everyone is gathered back together to participate in the Strongest Under the Heavens tournament, to see who is truly the world's strongest fighter. Although not everything would go to plan, as while Gohan is fighting some mysterious fighter known as Kibito, he would be frozen, and then two unknown people would jump into the ring, stabbing something into Gohan, stealing his energy before flying away. Gohan would be given a Senzu Bean and told about everything that was going on. Those two were servants of a wizard named Babidi, who was trying to resurrect an evil power known as Majin Buu. The Supreme Kai had to keep Gohan in place, that way Spopovich and Yamu wouldn't suspect anything and would take his energy, leading them to Babidi. And now the gang would all fly after Spopovich and Yamu in hot pursuit, as well as remaining far enough behind them, that way they could talk as well as overall just follow the two lackeys without being noticed. After Supreme Kai gives his normal exposition dump, they would arrive at Babidi's ship, where Deborah would be sent to go and deal with those spectators, while Babidi would kill Spopovich and Yamu before heading back into his ship. Deborah would try and spit on Piccolo, but that was his worst mistake, as Piccolo here is still the strongest out of the group, or at least as far as everybody knows he is. Then Piccolo would instantly power up into his potential unleashed form and wipe Deborah out with a simple Masenko. Then Supreme Kai, in astonishment, would lead them into Babidi's ship, wherein they would fight against Pui Pui, Yakon, and, well, nobody else. Babidi doesn't have anybody else. He would try and take over somebody's mind, but it just wouldn't work. Nobody there is actually stupid enough or evil enough to be taken over by Babidi. So, the wizard is actually defeated and Majin Buu isn't revived. Instead, Supreme Kai would just take the egg and bring it back to the world of the Kais, where they could dispose of it later. And after the peacetime resumes, a few months would pass, and the Supreme Kai would actually have the egg destroyed by the God of Destruction, who has just woken up from his 36-year-long nap. The god would be bored, and as Whis would tell him that even though he can go on whatever exposition he needs to, well, they need to go handle something with the Kais. Then, well, Shin would explain everything to Beerus, everything with the Majin Buu debacle, and how now he just needs to do a simple Hakai and then Buu is gone forever. And Beerus would yawn before being bored and Hakaiing away Buu without a single trace. Then, he would actually take note of something Supreme Kai had said about how they got Buu's egg. They were Saiyans. Saiyans who were strong enough to defeat Deborah, who was the king of the demons. Incredibly powerful, at least for mortal standards, so maybe those Saiyans, or at least one of them, could be the Super Saiyan God. And Whis would interject, saying that one of the Saiyans that helped defeat Majin Buu, or at least stop his resurrection, was actually training with North Kai, or King Kai. And Beerus, being absolutely thrilled that a Saiyan is training with, even if it's a lesser, God, well, he would immediately have Whis bring him to King Kai's planet, wherein Beerus would meet, or I guess reunite, with Prince Vegeta. As remember, King Kai wouldn't have trained Goku here. It was Vegeta who died and Vegeta who trained with the Kai. So Vegeta actually would be the person to meet with Beerus here. And, well, yeah, he is absolutely stunned. Vegeta would be as polite as he can possibly be, and as nice as he can possibly be. And when Beerus actually wants to test out the Saiyan's power, Vegeta would power up into Super Saiyan 2, even adding Kaioken on top to the 5th power. Super Saiyan 2 Kaioken times 5. This was the highest level Vegeta could reach at the moment, and Beerus is absolutely astounded. But he's not as strong as the Cat God, not even close. Although for mortal standards, this is incredibly powerful. But then Whis would mention that there are a few other Saiyans on Earth, so they should probably just go there and take a visit to that planet, see if there are any Super Saiyan gods there. And Vegeta would interject, saying that no, don't go to Earth, being afraid that the Cat God might just destroy it. So Vegeta would say that he does have a higher level he could go to, although it might tear his body apart. So Beerus, with a slight smirk, would ask if the Saiyan was holding out on him. He would say no, it's just his body might rip apart from all the power. So Vegeta, going into Super Saiyan 2 once more, would power up to Kaioken times 20, which absolutely astounds Beerus. It's incredibly powerful. Again, nothing compared to him, but maybe this is the closest thing they can get to becoming a Super Saiyan God. Actually, probably not. They're still going to go to Earth. so Vegeta would ask to tag along if they really are going to go, as he also might have potentially forgotten about Bulma's birthday party, so yeah, he should probably go back anyway. Then, the three of them would return to planet Earth, where Beerus would meet with Goku, as well as a few other Saiyans, such as Nappa, Raditz, and even Gohan, who, need I remind you, has kept up with his training. So Beerus, looking around to try and find the strongest one out of any of them, would pinpoint Gohan, who is probably the strongest person here. Not just strongest Saiyan, strongest person. Gohan's potential is insane and he has been training this entire time. So after Gohan enters Super Saiyan 2, he's even stronger than Vegeta once he went into Kaioken times 5. Saying he's stronger than Kaioken times 20 Vegeta feels a little wrong, but maybe Beerus can push him to even surpass that. So the two would have a brief sparring session, and Beerus, although having an insane upper hand, would see Gohan's growth and be incredibly impressed, asking if he has anything more than this, as he feels that there's something deep within Gohan he might be able to pull out, or at least maybe another form he can get him to unlock. Gohan would say that he does have something, but it's more experimental. He's not really sure if it's actually going to work. He feels like there's been something beyond the Super Saiyan 2 threshold, but he just hasn't been able to tap into it, although his father agrees that there's something beyond where they're at. Gohan might be able to do it, but they're not really sure. But Beerus saying that this is probably his one and only chance to actually do it, because if he doesn't, Beerus might just destroy the planet. Well, Gohan's incentivized, so he'd power up into Super Saiyan 3. And Beerus, he's incredibly impressed. This is the strongest mortal he has ever laid eyes on, and he really wants to know what the Super Saiyan God is if it's not this. As Gohan, although being incredibly powerful, doesn't have any sort of God Key, so he's not the Super Saiyan God. But Beerus is not going to destroy the planet. He doesn't want to. It's an amazing opportunity. And then everyone would continue partying and enjoying Bulma's birthday. But then Goku would have an idea. Why not use the Dragon Balls to find out about the Super Saiyan God? And Beerus is really up for anything at this point. If he can have the Super Saiyan God come here, well, that'd be awesome. If not, then he's still satisfied. So they would use the Dragon Balls and wish on Shinron to bring the Super Saiyan God to them. But no. Instead, the Super Saiyan God isn't a person, it's a form, and could be used or unlocked by a ritual. 5 Saiyans flowing their power into another. And then Shinron would disappear as he is absolutely terrified of Beerus. So then they would actually have more than enough Saiyans to actually do the ritual. They have Gohan, they have Trunks, they have Goku, Raditz, Vegeta, and Nappa. That's 6 right there. They would probably also have Goten, so they have more than enough. So now everyone would begin to do the ritual, although not on Gohan here. He would have 2 reasons as to why not to choose him. First off, he doesn't actually want to be handed power like this. He wants to go down his own path and not actually embrace the godly side of what he could achieve. Instead, he wants to grow on his own. And the other half of this is he's not actually sure if the ritual would even work on him. How do they know that it doesn't mean full-blooded Saiyans can only become the Super Saiyan God? Yeah, sure, he might be able to participate in the ritual, but how do they know that he'd actually be able to have it work on him? So Beerus would agree, although a bit reluctantly, having Goku be the one to actually get the ritual done on him, as base to base, he is the strongest Saiyan there, excluding Gohan. Then Goku would become the Super Saiyan God. Now you might expect me to say this fight goes the same way it does in Battle of Gods, but no. Goku isn't actually too against being handed power here. He doesn't like it, but he's not going to actively reject the form. Instead, he would embrace it and continue to fight against Beerus. And he actually gets stronger the more and more the fight goes on. He would never actually drop out of his Super Saiyan God form though. He would still absorb it into his base form, but once he fades out of it, he would just power back up into it, as he wouldn't continuously reject having the form and having the power, so he would embrace it and have it as his own. Once the fight is actually over, Beerus would say that he is more than happy with everything that everyone has achieved here, as well as the powers that everyone has. So he would offer Goku and Gohan to train on his planet anytime. That way Gohan can try and actually unlock whatever power he's seeking, while Goku can continue down his godlike path. And the two would agree. Both love training, and being a martial arts master as well as increasing their power is something both of them enjoy doing. Gohan would still like his intellectual side, but he is definitely more of a fighter here. So now that's kind of where this saga ends. But as we know with Dragon Ball, one ending does not always mean that the world is safe. There's always going to be a new threat lurking behind every corner, and right now is no different. Although there would still be peacetime, after a while, a group of people would come to Earth and gather the Dragon Balls to make a sinister wish. Our story begins with Goku training with Gohan with Whis, who would be trying to teach them both how to fully control God Ki. Although Gohan didn't want to get the Super Saiyan God or Blue transformations, he did still want to get a mastery over God Ki, as either way that does make him more powerful. And Ultimate Gohan here would be far stronger than his canon counterpart, by a long mile. You might be wondering why Gohan would have Ultimate here when I haven't given it to him in any other parts. Well, that's because Gohan would want to train with the Supreme Kai a bit before going on to actually training with the God of Destruction. He wants to be able to find his own path to power, and while training with the Supreme Kai and his attendant Kibito, he'd be able to find that. While training with the Z-Sword, he would accidentally break it, unleashing the Elder Kai, who would perform a ritual on him to allow him to access a brand new form. A form that allows him to use every last bit of his potential. Gohan would then return to Beerus' planet to begin his training for real, now that he knows what path he wants to go down, using the ultimate form and evolving his potential rather than gaining some new flashy transformations like Super Saiyan God or Blue. He would train with Whis, growing alongside his father, who has gained full mastery over his godly side, being able to use Super Saiyan God whenever he wants, as well as evolving the form. And he would have even tried to activate Super Saiyan on top of the God form. It's a bit of a stretch, but he thinks he can do it. He hasn't really had any practice with it yet, but he's pretty sure he would be able to do it eventually. But as the three are training, Whis would get a call on his staff from Bulma, who's offering a delicious ice creamy treat if he were to bring the two Saiyans back to Earth, and, well, you know Whis, he's willing to take the bribe. Although, Goku and Gohan would hear something over Whis' staff that Bulma would be saying. Frieza had returned, even stronger than ever, and is absolutely slaughtering the Z-Cast. They're not sure if they'd be able to make it, but with Goku and Gohan's help, maybe they stand a chance. Knowing how big of a threat Frieza is, Goku and Gohan would both demand that Whis bring them back to Earth immediately. And so they would. Although Beerus, not wanting to be left behind in the whole treat department, would demand that Whis brings him along as well. After all, Whis is Beerus' attendant. Whis doesn't go anywhere unless the god says so. Once the three of them arrive on the planet, they would see Piccolo, Raditz, Vegeta, and Nappa fighting against Frieza, who is incredibly powerful, just in his final form alone. He's able to take on Earth's 4 strongest warriors with no problem at all. How is Frieza this powerful? It just doesn't make sense. Goku and Gohan would step in, telling the other 4 to head to the sidelines before they get hurt, and although Vegeta is a bit reluctant, the other 3 would practically drag him away. Then Goku and Gohan, powering up into Super Saiyan each respectively, would try and fight off Frieza, and surprisingly he's even able to take them on in Super Saiyan, which is a bit shocking. But then, Frieza would say that he's been hiding something from the group, and he feels just awful about it, before backing up and powering up into his golden form. Then Goku would say that he has too, before doing the same, stepping back and activating Super Saiyan Blue. Gohan would power up into Ultimate, wanting to get this over with as quick as possible, and then the father and son duo would jump Frieza, although somehow he's keeping up. Golden Frieza is far more powerful here than he was before, because Frieza here knows the benefits of training. He did some light work before preparing for the Super Saiyan, but after he died and came back, he realized just a little bit of training, even 4 months, wouldn't be enough. So he trained for an entire year, which, well, might seem like a bit of overkill, but it definitely worked. Now, Goku and Gohan, although still incredibly powerful even while working together, can't seem to fight off Frieza. He's just too strong. Eventually, Frieza would knock Goku out of Super Saiyan Blue, pinning him to the ground, stepping on his head, smashing it into the rubble. Then, he would look over to Gohan, shooting a death beam through both of his arms, practically paralyzing him. Then he would look back over to the group of side characters and tell them that, they aren't even worth his time. Although, why not? Then, Frieza would use a Death Slicer to cut through each and every one of them. Beerus would have protected people like Bulma and the people close to him, but everyone else on the sidelines, yeah, they were killed. Raditz, Vegeta, Nappa, Piccolo, well, maybe not Piccolo because he can regenerate, but still, even Videl and Pan, her infant daughter, Gohan's infant daughter, they were killed by this monster. Gohan would look on at Frieza with a blinding rage as he would scream out in absolute terror and pain before powering up into a new strength he has never even thought possible. Gohan would enter the beast form. Everyone would look on with awe at Gohan's insane new power, although he would just look at Whis, telling him to reverse time, except leave himself and Frieza unaffected. He has some things he needs to work out. And Whis would do just that, reversing time a few minutes, and then bringing back everyone Frieza had killed, although Gohan and Frieza still remember everything that happened. Then, utilizing the power of the beast form, Gohan would pummel Frieza into the ground. The lizard man would begin to beg for mercy, although Gohan would say that he's fresh out, before throwing Frieza into the air, then launching a double Masenko to completely eviscerate him. Frieza is killed, once and for all. As Gohan is still fuming from everything that happened, the revenge he just got not quite satisfying him, 18 would walk over, comforting her son and wrapping him in a warm embrace, telling him that everything is going to be alright, saying that he stopped the bad guy and saved the day. He really is the superhero of this story, giving a light chuckle. Gohan would begin to calm down, even going out of his beast form, powering back down into base. Sorbet would attempt to use his laser gun to shoot Gohan and avenge his master, but nope, Gohan would turn around and launch his own laser straight at Sorbet, killing him and truly saving the day. And then, after spending some much needed time with their families, Goku and Gohan would go back to training on Beerus' planet. Gohan mastering his beast form, being able to use it whenever he needs, and Goku mastering Super Saiyan Blue, even being able to use a sort of God to Blue switch. After a while, Champa would arrive on Beerus' planet. The twin brother of the God of Destruction would, for one reason or another, demand to host a tournament to decide who gets the Super Dragon Balls. Honestly, that conversation basically goes the same as in the original, so there's not really any point in covering it. Also, I don't really remember it all that well. Then we would go into the Universe 6 vs 7 arc, and I actually think we could have a bit of fun with this. The first match would be between Goku and Botamo, and, well, frankly, that goes the same as in the original. There's no point in really covering that fight as it was pretty lackluster. Then Goku vs Frost, and honestly, I see Goku faring much better here, having a more serious demeanor as well as having a more get-things-done attitude. Goku wouldn't actually risk anything with Frost, especially after just fighting against a version of Frieza. Frost is basically just Frieza 2.0 in Goku's eyes. Not to be racist, it's just he doesn't really trust anybody that looks like Frieza. Then Goku would power up into Super Saiyan God and one-punch Frost, knocking him out of the arena as well as knocking him out cold. Then, for the next match, Goku vs. Kaba, well, I actually think Goku handles this better than Vegeta. As well as teaching him how to use Super Saiyan, Goku would also teach him how to activate Super Saiyan 2. Goku has had much more time training people on how to actually activate the Super Saiyan forms, so he'd probably be able to do it better than Vegeta, although Goku wouldn't use the same harsh methods. Then Goku would fight against Vegeta, and he'd probably just do the same thing that Vegeta did, eventually getting a bit ticked off, and while Goku has a few insults he could use. Nothing as rude as Vegeta, but he'd still find something. Now it's time for the real meat and potatoes of this arc. Goku versus Hit. Goku would start off by using his base form, testing how Hit's powers work, before then going into Super Saiyan God, realizing his base power just will not be enough. Using Super Saiyan God, Goku is able to get a better understanding of how Hit works, before then powering up into Super Saiyan Blue to really try and beat off Hit. Or, a better choice of words than the ones I just used. Goku would then power up into Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, saying he realizes Hit is definitely a strong opponent, and if he wants to stand a chance, he really can't hold anything back. And Goku in Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken is actually a pretty fair match against Hit, although Goku would say he hasn't really mastered this power, and he'd prefer not to put his life on the line just for winning a tournament, especially when he knows even if Goku loses, there's somebody else that would be able to beat Hit no problem. Before then jumping out of the arena and calling in Gohan to be the one to fight. Immediately after stepping into the ring, Gohan would sense Hit's power, realizing he is the real deal, before powering up into Ultimate and fighting against Hit, who is a bit battle-worn from his last battle, and even Ultimate Gohan is enough to push Hit to his limits. But then, once Gohan goes into Beast form, well, it's all over for the time-skipping assassin. He would land one hit on Hit, and that's enough to actually knock him clean out, then walking over to the ring and tossing him back to Champa, saying that next time, bring somebody who's a real challenge for Universe 7. And Champa is enraged, threatening to go down there and erase that arrogant Saiyan right now, although Beerus would laugh, saying he's not even really sure if he could. Gohan might actually have surpassed him. Champa would laugh this off, saying that his brother's just joking, he's just making a funny, he's just kidding. But Beerus would retort by saying that yes, of course he's just kidding. Or is he? But as Beerus begins to laugh himself, he would immediately turn to a look of horror, as the Omni King would appear in the middle of the arena with his two guards standing by his side. Now, I honestly feel like most of this interaction with Zeno and Goku and Beerus and all of them probably goes about the same as before, except Goku is a bit less stupid, as stupid Super Goku would instead be replaced with Goofy Dad Goku, who would probably have a bit of the same impression on Zeno, and the two would become friends, and even begin talking about having another tournament someday. Now, funnily enough, there wouldn't be much of a story after this point. The only real arcs we have left are the Tournament of Power and 2 manga canon arcs, which I have read the manga. In fact, I'm actually all the way caught up, but I don't remember it good enough to actually speak on it. So the Tournament of Power is the only part we have left. You might be wondering about the Goku Black arc, but that arc just wouldn't happen. First off, because the original reason for it actually happening was absolutely absurd and completely stupid, but here it would make even less sense for it to happen because there'd be much less time traveling. Trunks would really have only made 2 round trips, one to the past to deliver all the news about the androids and the heart virus medication, but then, after realizing the androids wouldn't be a threat here because the team was smarter than in the original, Goku and the rest would have just went back with Trunks to rehabilitate the androids in his future. Then, after that happens, well, they just kind of go back to the past, and then Trunks goes back to the future on his own. Problem solved. And there would also be no time traveling with Cell because, well, he would never have actually time traveled. In fact, Cell in the future timeline will be taken out because there'd be no reason for Bulma to try and actually reboot the androids as well as Cell in the future. So, future Cell's killed, present Cell is a good boy who basically is just part of the Briefs family and was told to stay behind with Goten and Trunks while the Resurrection F saga was going on, so there was really no need for any time traveling to happen, and Zamasu wouldn't get upset. So he's just kind of still making tea for Gowasu until he becomes the Supreme Kai, and a pretty good one at that after he gets over his hatred of mortals. So for the next year or so, Goku and Gohan would continue training, increasing their power, as well as evolving their forms even further. Gohan really wouldn't have a way to evolve his beast form, but being able to get a better mastery over God Ki and adding that to the beast form would certainly make it stronger. And Goku would actually unlock Ultra Instinct a lot earlier than before, as Whis would be focusing on Goku a lot more than Gohan. He already knows what he's going after and evolving, so now it's time for Goku to start going down his own path, evolving into Ultra Instinct. And he'd actually be able to master Ultra Instinct Omen and use it basically at will. Now training with Gohan, the two would get incredibly powerful. And this is good timing, in fact perfect timing, as Zeno is about to hold a tournament to determine who is the strongest universe, and which universe will get to survive.
Let the tournament of power begin!
As the tournament would begin, people would be getting knocked out left, right, and center. Speaking of the center, though, Universe 7 would stay in the middle of the ring. Some of the weaker fighters would be told to stay in the middle at all times as to be harder to be eliminated. Although some of the stronger members of the team, such as Goku and Gohan, would actually go out trying to get more eliminations. Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, and Piccolo would be the people actually going out and fighting to try and get more eliminations. That way they have a higher ranking in terms of knockouts. Although another member of their team that would decide to go out and fight and get more eliminations would be Frieza, but he wouldn't be going in the same way as the other members of the group. He would be much more violent and vindictive, making sure to hit people where it hurt. Now, why would Frieza be on this team if he would still not be trustworthy? In fact, if Gohan's leading the team, why would he accept someone like Frieza into it? Well, it's because he's just far too strong. At the end of the tournament, they can either just not revive him or kill him off anyway, and he really isn't a threat anymore. Although he is still incredibly powerful and somebody that would definitely be a proper asset to the team. But who are the other 5 members who are staying in the center of the arena? Well, that'd be 18, Nappa, Raditz, Goten, and Trunks. Goten and Trunks would actually be picked to fight in this tournament, as 18 would take a lot more time actually training Goten, while Vegeta would spend a lot more time focusing on training Trunks. Although he would still focus on increasing his own abilities, making sure his son is strong is still something he would take a lot of pride in. Now, you might be wondering why I have Goten and Trunks in the team if I haven't really talked at all about them before this point. Well, that's because the Buu Saga didn't really happen in this What If, and Goten and Trunks were only really important in the Buu Saga. So here, let's give them a chance to shine now. Goten and Trunks would actually be a bit older than they were before, as 18 would take the two of them into the hyperbolic time chamber to allow them to get a bit older and a bit more experience before participating in the tournament. But she wouldn't be the only person going into the Room of Spirit and Time. Before she went in, Piccolo and Vegeta would spend a few years in there. Since Goku went off to train with the God of Destruction and got so incredibly powerful with his godly side, Vegeta had to find a new rival. And it turns out, Piccolo, who was probably the strongest of the group when Goku left, well, before Goku left, would be looking for someone to train with as well. And Vegeta just fit the mark, as the two of them were similar in power. Vegeta with Kaioken on top of any of his Super Saiyan forms was enough to match Piccolo with his ultimate form. So then the two of them continued to train, and eventually both of them stumbled upon a new power. Vegeta would mix Ikari with Super Saiyan and be able to get Super Saiyan 4. And that adding Kaioken on top of that, he was able to push Piccolo to accessing a new realm of power, his orange form. And the two of them training together got incredibly powerful, from all of that time spent together in the room. Then entering the tournament, they actually caught up to Goku and Gohan at least a little bit. And now, with the rest of the group so powerful, the tournament seems like a bit of a wash, right? No, because not only did Universe 7 get stronger, but Universe 6 did as well. Most of the fodder members of the other universes wouldn't really see any notable increase, although Universe 6 definitely would, as the Universe 6 Saiyans were trained better by Goku, or at least Kappa was, so he was able to teach Caulifla and Kale what he learned. Not only how to access Super Saiyan, but also Super Saiyan 2. With this knowledge, they would train and even access Super Saiyan 3 on their own. But then, they would remember something else Goku probably would have told Kappa. Something about the Super Saiyan God. They would try out the ritual Goku had told them about, but it wouldn't work, as Yamoshi's soul had already been used for the ritual with the original 6 Saiyans in the Battle of God saga. Plus, Yamoshi's soul wasn't wandering around Universe 6, so the ritual doesn't really work there. But knowing that there is some godly power they could attain, this would push them to work even harder, and eventually, Kappa would actually be able to do it, accessing Super Saiyan God. Kale would have Super Saiyan, or the legendary version of it, and Caulifla would evolve Super Saiyan 3, not getting Super Saiyan 4, but mastering the Super Saiyan 3 state. All three of them would be incredibly powerful, and entering the tournament, they might actually be able to stand a shot against most of the other Universe 7 fighters. In fact, once Kale and Caulifla actually fuse after Goku fights Jiren for the first time, and most of that encounter goes basically the same, Goku would be pushed to actually master Ultra Instinct in his fight with them, as they would be able to access the legendary Super Saiyan 3, which, as far as I know, is only really a fan-made form, but is still definitely possible. So now, Goku fighting against this fusion would have mastered Ultra Instinct, and would barely even be able to stand a chance with that, although he would be able to knock them out after a while. But little did Goku expect, after beating Kefla, he would have to fight against his former pupil, Kaba, who would be looking to get a rematch, especially after unlocking the Super Saiyan God power. And Goku, entering Super Saiyan God himself, would be able to help Kaba just as much as he did before, even helping the young Saiyan unlock Super Saiyan Blue. Although Goku, he's a bit washed out, so he can't really fight right now. He's low on energy, and Kaba might actually be able to knock him out here. Although, Gohan would step in, going into his beast form, and teaching Kaba that there is always another height to strive for. Then Gohan, now having used his beast form for the first time in the tournament, would gain the attention of Jiren, who is looking for a proper challenge in this tournament possibly. Then, sensing the power of Gohan Beast, Jiren thinks he might just be able to get that challenge, going into his full power state right away and landing a hit straight on Gohan's cheek, which would send him flying, although Gohan would regain his footing and charge at Jiren like a speeding bull. The two would go at it for a few minutes, and after a while Jiren would be placed on the back foot. Although he might have been able to beat Gohan once he first unlocked the beast form in this timeline, well, after he trained with it and accessed God Ki on top of it, the beast form was just too much, and especially now, during the Tournament of Power, Gohan is just far too much for Jiren to handle, and Jiren, the strongest member of the tournament that we had seen thus far, would be knocked out. Although Gohan is a bit fatigued, as Jiren was definitely a challenge. A few minutes during the tournament would pass, and eventually Frieza would piss Toppo off just so much that he has to break his morals and awaken to his God of Destruction form. Vegeta, seeing this, would be in awe and decide that he wants to try and fight that, entering Super Saiyan 4 and activating Kaioken on top. And, well, Toppo is actually quite a bit surprised by this. It's incredibly powerful, and there isn't any godly energy emanating off of him. This is pure mortal strength. He's surprised, although Vegeta is still not strong enough, and Toppo would proceed to, well, basically just bully him like he was doing to Frieza. But then Vegeta would begin to get enraged, breaking his limits and entering the well-named Limit Breaker form. Limit Breaker is basically just Super Saiyan 4 mixed with God Ki, and I feel like here it would be a fitting thing for Vegeta to unlock. He's definitely been exposed to enough God Ki to be able to do this, and after entering this form, Toppo is practically nothing to him. Vegeta would be able to overpower the so-called God of Destruction candidate, before then tossing him out of the ring and using a Gallic gun to ensure that Toppo would not be able to find a way back in. Then, after Universe 11 is basically defeated, they would begin to be erased. It turns out when you have some of the strongest members of the tournament, you get a bit targeted, and Universe 11 would actually be erased quite a bit sooner than in the original. Now, with the two strongest teams other than Universe 7 completely washed, as in Universe 6 and 11, Universe 7 would be on a clear path to victory, and eventually, they would win. There isn't really much more to say about this. They'd be able to bulldoze through the rest of the fighters, and although Ribri Ann, as we all know, is the strongest being in any universe, they would decide to hold back and let Universe 7 actually get the victory. Now, with the tournament over, what does Universe 7 wish for? Well, who'd be the MVP? Probably Gohan, as he'd be able to defeat the strongest and probably most amount of opponents, so he wishes for every other universe to be brought back. We would find out that this was actually the only wish Zeno would have accepted, and if they didn't wish for that, then Zeno would get so upset that he would just wipe out everything. Luckily, they dodged a pretty big bullet there, and all of the universes are brought back. So where do we go from here? Well, we only really have one place. The Broly movie, as I don't want to cover either of the manga-only arcs, and quite frankly, Dragon Ball Super Superhero either just wouldn't happen because the android threat and any remnants of the Red Ribbon Army would be completely destroyed, or it would just be handled very easily as we already have a stronger Gohan Beast and Orange Piccolo. So, really, we only have the Broly movie left to cover, and it would go incredibly easy, although, let me set the scene. We would be in the frozen tundra. Frieza would arrive with his ship, Broly in tow, and then, as Frieza steps out looking at the two Saiyans, both Goku and Gohan, Broly would be sent out, charging at the two of them. He would fight Gohan first, and this was his worst mistake, as Gohan is the one that would not take it easy. Gohan would immediately power up into Ultimate, which would be akin to Super Saiyan Blue Goku, possibly even with Kaioken on top, so Broly is kind of screwed, although, as we know, he can grow in power incredibly quickly. Gohan, seeing this, would eventually decide the only way to end this fight is to go all out right away, and he would do just that, powering up into Beast, and although Broly can grow incredibly quickly, he cannot grow quick enough to actually overcome this gap. Gohan would end the fight right away, knocking Broly out, although Broly is still somewhat conscious. Seeing that he doesn't have many other choices, Frieza would shoot Paragus through the chest and act as if Gohan did it. Broly would immediately power up into Super Saiyan, becoming enraged, and all of his wounds healed, his power soaring. Broly would immediately charge at Gohan, and this is surprising, as Broly's insane growth actually allows him to fight somewhat on par with the Half Saiyan. And as Broly continues to grow, Goku would decide the only way this fight can be finished is if they were to teleport away and use fusion. So he would do just that, grabbing onto Gohan, teleporting away, and teaching him the fusion dance as quickly as possible. Then, after a while, they'd be able to learn it, fusing into Gokhan. The fusion would be incredibly powerful and would arrive on the battlefield to fight against Broly, who would be being held off by Whis. Gokhan would then power up into Super Saiyan Blue Beast Mode, which would be incredibly powerful and look incredibly cool, and then with a single Kamehameha would immediately defeat Broly. And that's how I see the Broly movie going. It'd be a one-hit KO from Gokhan, and Broly would be taken out relatively easily, although he would be a threat for a minute there, although it'd basically just go the same way it did in the Broly movie. And that's where we're going to be ending things for today. I hope you enjoyed watching this, I certainly enjoyed making it, and if you ever want to see this series continue, let's get the full story video to 1,000 likes. then I know a lot of people like this story, and that's probably the most likes I've ever gotten on any video. So that definitely means you guys want to see the series continue. I don't really like the manga only arcs, but I'd be willing to cover it if the full story video gets to 1,000 likes. Now, this is, always has been, and always will be the Irishman. Thank you so very much for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.